Hi everyone, Pat here. Welcome to this week's Tuesday market review. I'm going to try and keep this as short as possible. I did just record this, and after sulking with myself about the audio being broken, I'm going to quickly whiz through it. To be fair, the last recording was about almost 20 minutes, so I want to keep it a lot shorter than that anyway. So we're going to get straight into it, and we're going to start talking about the weekly SFP that we had on Bitcoin. So I don't want to talk too much about what an SFP is exactly. But to quickly summarize, it is a swing failure above a prior structured high. Basically when price attempts to trade into a breakout environment, usually from a range, right? So we can see here like a range, we get that weekly SFP and eventually it topped us, right? So price attempted to trade above here, but eventually closed back below, and we can see how price topped out back in early 2021. Again, the same back in late 2021, price sort of had a range, attempted to break out, wicked, failed to close above there and sold off. Many cases of this, the June July top back in 2023, the Jan 2024 top, and then obviously we had that SFP back in January of this year. Same sort of idea. We had this range, right? We had a range, price attempted to break above the range and then eventually accepted back inside and sold off. So we are, forming another SFP here, right? It is confirmed that we have a swing failure pattern above our prior all-time high, but this time around it's slightly different. And I'll talk about that, why it's different now and how we can go about trading it. So the thing is with this SFP, right, we did a swing failure pattern above the prior all-time high. We can see that the price of last week's trading week attempted to break above prior all-time high and close back below. The only difference this time round is the fact that we're still trading above quite a key area, right, which is this prior range high. If you remember what I said, a lot of the time these range breaks, they ended up closing back inside the range, whereas this one we continue to hold sort of above this 106 area, which if we go on the daily is that range high area. So as long as we hold above this range high and above 106 this week, I think things look positive for BTC, and I see no reason why we should assume the local top is in. But in terms of that 106 area, it makes it a very important place to hold. It doesn't mean that we can't sweep under here, but overall I want to continue to hold 106 on the daily and the weekly time frame. I think that's really important for BTC. As long as we can hold 106, I expect us to continue to break out over the next 40 days, which I'll get onto shortly. But now I think overall the 104 region is an optimal place to buy Bitcoin spot, but I think it's going to be a hard area to be a buyer at, simply because of the aggression from this move so far, right? And it's been the same the whole way up and has not been offering much of an opportunity to get into it. If you are a passive trader and you're waiting for these sweeps, you don't get much of a sweep, and they're always very shallow, right? We can see we flipped 82k. 82k was a very strong area for BTC. Once we reclaimed there, we didn't sweep, we legged up again, we flipped 94k. We didn't sweep, we legged up again, we flipped 102k, right? These are all key levels for BTC. We didn't sweep, we legged up, and now we're doing the exact same thing above 106. We've reclaimed 106. Currently we haven't swept the lows. Are we going to just continue to break up from here? I think yes. I think BTC isn't going to give much of a pullback down to 100 for a few reasons. I don't think that the funding is high enough yet. I don't think the froth in the market is high enough to see these market-wide flushes. I think alts have been suffering over the past week or so since we topped out. And that's simply because, dominance has been on a tear. BTC remains the dominant asset in the market. So until we see like a lot of froth in an open interest rising in the market, I think it's very unlikely that we see a really deep pullback from BTC back into 100. And right now, I think at most we could probably sweep these lows around 106 into 104 before bouncing, right? Similar to, what is a very reminiscent move of that breakout back in November last year. Moving into this 104, sort of got that breakout to all-time high, sold off, and then eventually legged up, right? Breakout to all-time high, sold off, and then legged out. Because I could see a world where if we move into 104, everyone gets really bearish in here, and then the people who are looking to long are thinking that we're going to go down here. We front run it, and we end up legging up. So That's the absolute ideal spot. I think anywhere from 104 down to 102 looks like the best place for us to become a buyer on leverage. Leverage longs 104 looks like the best place, especially for altcoins. Right now I'm struggling to get leverage longs on alts until we see a significant move from Bitcoin. I want to talk about altcoins in a minute, but for now, just spot and chill on a lot of things, looking at adding on dips and expecting us to rally for the next 40 days or so into June. So I get the 40 days from the prior range breaks that we've had on BTC. Basically, they've all sustained for about 40 to 50 days, right? We can see that range break 40 days, 50 days. That range break felt 40 days. That range break 50 days. That range break. Technically, you know, on average, if as long as this range break on BTC sustains and we continue to hold above 106, we should trade up for another 40 days into sort of like 130 to 140 by June, going into July. You can see what happens to the total 3 in these periods where we see a BTC breakout, right? We get an almost like a mini alt season. Total 3 broke up 70% on that range break, and then again 70%, and then back in November last year 100%, right? So I think on average a 50 to 70% breakout from total 3, as long as this BTC move sustains over the next week or so, I think we can see a breakout into June, right? Before we hit what potentially could be summer seasonality in the market. Something that a lot of traders think is a common trend, right? As we move into summer months, big players go on holiday, people stop trading as much, volumes and volatility gets a lot lower. So, you know, the window now for us to break out is very small. So I like the chances of some continuation and betting on some continuation in the near term, simply because of how small the window is that we're going to be able to break out. So as long as BTC can remain to hold 106, I'm expecting a good breakout in the market over the next 40 days or so. The dollar, this is important. As long as the dollar remains below 99, 100, I think this can continue to sell off and roll over. We can see the prior two times where the dollar broke down under 99 and BTC basically went on this rampage to the upside. So we could see a similar thing and some continuation for BTC for the rest of the year, as long as the dollar continues to do something like this. ETH is a altcoin that I actually have some interest in right now. Actually, a lot of these AI coins are starting to give me some interest simply because they've been in their own sort of mini bear market. I think they're well overdue some relief. We can see here ETH is not far off doing a pullback similar to what it done between 21 and 2023 bear market. Same sort of percent, right? 95% to the downside and then 90% to the downside. I think if ETH can reclaim this 0.9 to $1 region, it looks fantastic for a buy. So I'm going to keep an eye on that. And then targeting probably these highs around 2.2. Wild is another good AI coin to keep your eye on, as long as it can hold above or flip this 104, this 1.4 region, sorry, 1.4 needs to be flipped. I think it can trade towards probably $3, maybe even as high as $4.5 over the next 40 days or so. DOGE is a pretty good coin right now. The weekly it's flipped a nice area. I think as long as the market can sustain, as long as ETH continues to hold quite well, this can continue to trade up, right? So now move on to ETH. This looks good. Reclaimed this 2500 area. I think as long as, you know, it's kind of flagging into here, as long as it holds 2500 on the high time frame, maybe it fakes out, does a little sweep. I think ETH can trade to 3k to 3200 over the next month or so prior to summer. So in terms of a breakout this week, BTC needs to flip above 110. BTC needs to flip 110. If it does, then it can probably perform a similar sort of breakout to what we done last week, where it sort of broke prior weekly value high, had some good acceptance, and then we continue to leg up, right? That prior weekly value high is clearly a difficult spot for BTC right now, considering last week it was a trend place. This week it's currently a bit of a reversal place. So if we can sort of V-shape this move early this week, get above 110, then we can probably leg up to 114, 120 towards the back end of this week. Until then, maybe look for that pullback like I mentioned into 104, which looks like the sweet spot right now. I think this is a really nice buy opportunity if you get anywhere towards this region this week. Yeah, trying to keep it as short as possible. That's everything to comment on this week in Tuesday market review, you can check out the socials below. Join me on Discord, following the link below, posting all my thoughts and trades for this week, every week in the Wealth Group Discord. And I will hopefully see you guys on Thursday for the Charting from Blank episode. Bye.